Good morning, Planetiers, here and there. I'm so pleased to be here today within this green world digital gathering community of people and companies wanting to make a difference and change the world with green ideas and green solutions. My name is Isabel Augusto, and I'm the CEO and founder of Green Media, a PR agency here in Portugal. I'm here today with 3 special guests. And within the next half an hour, we'll take a look on how our companies changing the world for better. Right here by my side, I'm pleased to introduce Mr. Luís Amado. He's the Executive Director of the B Corporation, which is a non-profitable organization that serves a global movement of people using business as a force for good. Its vision is that one day, all companies compete not only to be the best in the world, but the best for the world. And as a result, society will enjoy a more shared and durable prosperity. And then we'll meet 2 of B Portuguese Corp companies, Mrs. Catarina Cunha, founder and managing partner of Manipedi, a certified B corporation in the well-being sector, and Mr. Pedro Pais de Almeida, partner at Abreu lawyers and also the president at Union International des Advogados. And I'll get back to you both later. Dear Luís Amado, you bring us the experience of all these B Corp companies. What is it? How does it work? And how are these companies having a positive impact in the world? Would you please share with us?
Sure. Good morning to all here and a bit further away. It's a pleasure to be here. Before saying a few words, maybe it would be interesting to see some images because we are at least I'm very dear about the images. So if you can show the little movie that we brought, that would be interesting, please.
There are more than 3,000 certified B corporations in 150 industries around the world and growing every day. B Corps are a force for good in the world by adopting better business practices like better wages for workers, responsible sourcing, inclusive hiring, carbon reduction, and charitable giving. What they all have in common is a commitment to do less harm and do more good, just like you. Choose better, do better, feel better.
So I hope we will be feeling better after this couple of minutes. And that's the idea behind the B Corp movement is, like was said before, to be a force for good based on business. And with that, to be able to create a more sustainable world, if we want to use that word, in the sense that it would be more inclusive, more equitable, and with the possibility of all the generations to have the same quality of life that have been experiencing so far. So presently the movement has more than 3,500 companies all over the world in more than 70 countries in very different industries, as you can imagine. And you have a sample here of 2 very different in Portugal. It has been growing a lot lately. Probably is not by chance, but because some issues are becoming more and more relevant. This event is a show of that perspective. This is the scenario we have in Portugal in terms of the certified companies we have presently in Portugal. On your left side, you have the companies that are incorporated in Portugal, and on your right side, some of the ones that are present in Portugal. And they are growing as well a lot. Though we have a lot of, it's not updated. I did this 2 days ago, and yesterday I knew another company submitted, so it's growing fast as well in Portugal as all over the world. And with Portuguese companies committed and doing and showing the way in this group of companies that is sharing their knowledge to become better and better for the world every day. Those are 2 companies, Portuguese companies, that were distinguished with the prizes we have about the best for the world, for companies that are the best in some of the areas that the tool that is called the B Impact Assessment uses to certify the companies. And this working together allows companies to learn with each other, to commit to some challenges that they think are relevant for having a better planet, namely this net zero by 2030 that a lot of companies signed as their objective for 2030, in which we are working together, and we will be able to learn more about this if you want to attend the session in this room tomorrow at noon. This will be more discussed in detail. And I will leave the other to help me to show you what is this movement about.
Thank you, Luís, for your B Corp vision. We all wish it to go as global as it can and hope it to keep growing in the next following years. Well, now we'll hear it from one of your clients' voice. Catarina, you were selected as a BMW Foundation Responsible Leader, co-founder of the Conscious Capitalism community here in Portugal, and a board member of the INSEAD Portugal Alumni Association. You are also a board member at the non-profit Top IB International School, Soares, the co-founder and advisor board member at YES, Social Business School, and the co-founder of Living Together. Catarina, after an amazing international challenge and career experience, you came back to Portugal in 2015 and created your own company, Manipedi. Why did you want it immediately to be a corp company?
Thank you for that great introduction. Let me give you some context. So I did have I still do have, I think, a very global perspective. And I think it was in 2004, I would say I was 28.
Yeah.
I was a consultant working in finance in New York, flying all over the world for clients. And up until then, I had been trained to maximize shareholder value.
Okay.
I was taught at school, in undergrad, in business school, in my consulting jobs, cash flow, free cash flow is king, and your goal in life is to maximize shareholder value. And I didn't really question that a lot in my work. And I think it was at that time I was coming to 30, and I was really thinking, like, it must be something more meaningful. Why is that my purpose? Who are these shareholders that I'm maximizing value for? And that's about the same time when I came across the book by Jeffrey Sachs, The End of Poverty. And that's when I read about the United Nations Millennium Development Goals. So the MDGs, some people are not familiar with the MDGs. They were set up to reach 8 goals by 2015. And that really gave me a guidance and a purpose in my individual life. And also I tried to move that into my professional life. And so I think our lives go in stages. And that's when I started a different stage. And so from that on until now, so it's been 16 years, I think I spent about 10 years until 2015, where I was, I would say, in an exploration phase. And I joined large corporations, I started corporations, nonprofit, for-profit, international organizations. I worked for the African Development Bank.
Wow.
I started an NGO, I worked for NGOs. And honestly, I come from a corporate background, and I really think out of that experience in looking at different things in different parts of the world, I came to a realization that for the future to be better, in my personal perspective, there are 3 pillars that I want to work on. One is changing business, the other one is changing education, and the other one is empowering women. So I think with those 3, we'll get really far. So when I decided to come back to Portugal, I knew I wanted to start my own project. And a couple of years before, in 2013, at a BMW Foundation event in China, I had the opportunity to meet this incredible, charismatic man called Pedro. And I think sometimes our choices also are influenced by people and by things we read. And Pedro told me, he's one of the founders of the B Corp movement, and he's this incredible Argentinian person, and he told me about the B Corp, he explained it, and it just clicked. It just makes so much sense that you can use the power of business, the resources of business, to actually make a positive impact. And so I said, okay, when I start my own company, if I do a for-profit project, it will have to be B Corp certified.
Wow.
or I'm not doing something right. So in my own perspective, this can be in any field, in any industry. So I lived in New York for a long time, and I really enjoyed the whole manicure, pedicure experience. And when I came back to Portugal, I saw there was a market need for that. People were not doing this in a very secure way, hygienic way. They were mixing a lot of these services in hairdressers. And then I found out that the people, the technicians that do this job, were completely mistreated. They had no social protection. And so I said, okay, well, there's clearly an opportunity here. So why don't I build a company that can train people, can empower women, employ women, and have the best manicure and pedicure salon in Lisbon.
Wow.
And so that's kind of how I did it. And then we got certified. We did the process at the end of 2017, so January 2018 we got certified as a B Corp.
Wow, amazing story. Thank you, Catarina. Pedro, we'll now hear your experience of Pedro Pais de Almeida and his case study as well as a B Corp spirit in Abreu, Advogados. What would you like to share with us?
Well, first of all, perhaps
you have a presentation.
Yes,
yeah.
Perhaps could you pass the presentation?
Please.
Well, I believe that what we as a law firm, Abreu Advogados, we are an example that even a law firm can be sustainable. And this is not a recent history in our law firm. I should recall that back in 2009, we launched the first sustainability report of a legal entity in Portugal. And this was only natural at the time, because at the time we made this report on the basis of what was already our practice, our IDN at our law firm. So this was really a process going forward, because since the beginning and since the incorporation of Abreu Advogados, and this is a law firm incorporated back in 1993, this was part of our ADN, and since the beginning, we felt as lawyers that we should not be worried only about our partners, but we need to be worried about all the stakeholders involved in a law firm. And I must tell you that at the time, the reaction of the market to our publication of the first report was really something very curious, because one of the things that we decided to disclose at the time was our full financial statement. And this was something that was not a practice at the market at the time. And even today, law firms do deposit their accounts mandatorily, of course, before tax authorities, but also before the Portuguese Bar Association. But all those accounts are kept secret, and no one knows what is the financial statement of a law firm in Portugal. But we decided to be different, we decided to be sustainable, and we decided above all to be transparent. And then our joining the movement of B Corps, I was fortunate enough to meet the movement from the first beginning, because at the time, Pedro Tarak, you mentioned him, I was also fortunate enough to meet him in one of his first trips to Lisbon. And at the time, he came to visit us at our law firm, and he spoke about the B Corp movement. And of course, I was enthusiastic from the first beginning, and it made a lot of sense. And I still remember that when I listened to him, and for a long time, I made just a few remarks and a few questions. And at the end of the meeting, I handed him over a copy of our sustainability report. And he was very impressed and said to me, well, you are already a B Corp, so it's a matter of certification. And therefore, it was really by chance that I have met the movement. And of course, then I helped the movement in its establishment here in Portugal, and of course I still do some pro bono legal assistance when they need. And of course our certification, I believe it came, correct me if I am wrong, Luís, but I believe our first certification is from the year 2015, and of course, and from then on, the certification needs to be renewed each 2 years, which we have been doing, and I believe we will continue to do so, and of course, then it makes a lot of sense, and still does a lot of sense to be part of a family of companies that, as you said in the introduction, they don't want to be the best company in the world, but they want to be best for the world. So, making a long story short, this would be my first impressions on your particular question.
Thank you. Luís, would you say there are main sectors prepared for B Corp, or any company can be a B Corp organization?
Any company can be a B Corp.
Here, like the extremes.
What
so
does
a
it
small
mean?
company and the bigger company, different areas of business. We have go from one-person company in Madeira to 10,000 employees company in Sri Lanka or in China. And there is a tool that enables all those companies to figure out what can be their way based on previous experience, because if you go to the BIA assessment, that is the tool that allows you to be certified. You have an idea of where you are and where you can be by multiple choice questions in 5 different areas, going from governance to customers, through workers, the community and the environment. And by knowing what are the best practices that the others are doing, because they are there as an option, you can understand where you are and where you can be. Those questions are in broad terms the same, but adapted to companies. Pedro BIA assessment at Abreu would not have a question about the fertilizers they use because they don't use fertilizers. If you have an agricultural company, probably that question would be there. But that is the way it works, and that's how the know-how is interchanged also in terms of best practices, because companies have all human resources to deal with, environment to deal with, and as you've seen before, I showed you there are task forces for certain areas that are common to all companies that support each other in this growth to become the best for the world. So there are no barriers to different companies. They just have to be companies, because it's B Corp. Sometimes I have entities willing to be certified B Corps, but they are not Corps. They can still use the tool because it's an open tool. They can use it for their management to evaluate themselves. They can just not can be B Corp because they are not a Corp.
Okay, thank you. We're short on time. Thank you, all three of you, for your participation in Planetiers here this morning. We'll now get back to you in a few minutes for the next panel, Innovation Inside a Country. We belong in tomorrow's today. Please stay with us. I'll get back immediately in a few minutes. Bye, everyone.